The ocean has a sound that never forgets. Every wave carries memories, whispers of laughter, and sometimes, echoes of betrayal. I bought my beach house 30 years ago, when I was still young and believed that hard work could quiet every storm. It was a small house then, weathered but full of hope. The kind of place where I thought my family would always gather, where my children would bring their laughter, and one day, where my grandchildren would build sandcastles on the shore. I never imagined it would become the battlefield for my dignity, my peace, and my pride. I raised my son alone after his father passed. It wasn't easy being a black woman trying to provide, surrounded by people who thought success had a color. I worked 3 jobs, saved every penny, and refused to let life decide my worth. When I finally bought that beach house, it was more than just property. It was proof that a woman like me could build something lasting, something beautiful. My son grew up watching me fight for everything we had, and for a long time, I thought he understood. But success, when it finally reached him, made him forget where he came from. And worse, it made him ashamed of me. When he married his wife, I tried to welcome her with open arms. She was polite, polished, and charming, the kind of woman who smiled with her lips but never her eyes. From the beginning, I could feel her judgment. She'd comment on my clothes, my accent, my skin, as if all of it were a reminder of a past she wanted her husband to erase. My son would laugh nervously, trying to smooth things over, but every time he chose silence, it was another small betrayal. The first time they came to stay at the beach house, she looked around like a queen inspecting a kingdom, and I knew, she didn't see it as my home. She saw it as something she could own. The announcement came during dinner one summer evening. We were sitting around the long oak table, the sound of the sea faint through the open windows. She placed her manicured hand on my son's arm and smiled sweetly before saying, "We've decided we'll be moving into your beach house next year." I froze, my fork halfway to my lips. My son avoided my eyes, pretending to adjust his napkin. "It just makes sense," she continued, her tone syrupy. "You don't really need all this space anymore, and we want our kids to grow up by the ocean." She said it as if I weren't sitting right there, as if my years, my memories, my sacrifices, were nothing more than clutter to be cleared out. I didn't argue. I'd learned long ago that silence can be more powerful than shouting. I simply nodded and excused myself, walking out onto the deck where the waves rolled in slow and steady, as if reminding me to breathe. That night, I made a decision. I had spent my entire life giving, my time, my love, my home. But this time, I wasn't going to let anyone take what I'd built, especially not someone who thought I didn't deserve it. Over the next few months, I prepared quietly. My lawyer, an old friend from my community center, helped me update the ownership documents and install a smart security system that required biometric access. My fingerprints, my voice, my code. I transferred the deed into a trust that no one but me could alter. On the surface, I smiled and continued hosting them like nothing had changed. My son brought his wife to the house often, and she began acting as though it already belonged to her. She redecorated the guest room, moved my family photos off the mantel, and once even told a neighbor that she couldn't wait to make this place feel more modern. I watched, waited, and learned. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. It's patient, quiet, and perfectly timed. Then came the day of their move-in. They arrived early, their car full of boxes, their voices bright with entitlement. My son hugged me quickly, already distracted by the task ahead. His wife handed me a set of keys she'd had made, to my own house. "We'll take it from here," she said with that same empty smile. I nodded, stepped aside, and watched them carry their things inside. For a moment, I felt the weight of all the years between us. The love I'd given, the disrespect I'd swallowed, the pride I'd buried. Then I turned and walked down to the shore, my bare feet sinking into the cool sand. As the sun began to set, I opened the small remote in my hand and pressed a single button. Within seconds, an alarm blared from the house, sharp, piercing, impossible to ignore. I turned back to see them rushing out onto the porch, panic etched across their faces. The smart system had locked every door and window. My son's wife was shouting, demanding to know what was happening. My son looked at me, his confusion turning to realization. He called out, "Mom, what did you do?" I didn't answer. I just stood there, the ocean roaring behind me, the light catching the tears in my eyes, not of sadness, but release. When the alarm finally stopped, I walked back up the path, my steps steady, my voice calm. This house, I said, was built on my struggle, my love, and my sacrifice. No one will ever take that from me again. My son tried to speak, but I held up a hand. You let her treat me like I was nothing. You let her erase me in my own home. I forgave you once, but I won't let you do it again. I handed them both an envelope. Inside was a letter from my lawyer. The legal proof that the beach house now belonged to a charitable trust in my name. They could never claim it, never sell it, never live in it. It would become a place for single mothers and women rebuilding their lives. Women like I once was. Her smile vanished completely then, replaced by something small and hollow. My son looked lost, torn between shame and disbelief. I didn't hate him. I pitied him, because he had chosen a woman who valued walls more than love, appearance more than truth. I told them they had an hour to gather their things. When they drove away that night, I watched the headlights disappear down the coastal road, just as I had watched the waves for decades, patient, certain, unbroken. Now I sit on that same porch every evening, the sea breeze tangling through my hair. The house feels lighter, freer, as if it knows it's finally safe. People in town call me strong, but I don't think of it that way. I think of it as necessary. Sometimes life gives you storms not to drown you, but to wash away everything that doesn't belong. My son may never understand, and his wife will likely never forgive, but that's no longer my burden to carry. As the sun dips into the horizon, I whisper to the waves, some things can be stolen, but not this. Not my peace. And somewhere deep inside I know, the alarm that went off that day wasn't just for the house. It was the sound of a woman reclaiming her power,